World War II was a storm unlike anything the world had ever faced, a conflict that ignited in Europe, swept across Asia, and ultimately engulfed the entire globe. It was a war born from anger, fueled by ambition, and defined by humanity's greatest extremes, acts of unimaginable cruelty and moments of extraordinary courage. As millions fought and millions died, the world was forced to transform. When it ended, nothing, no nation, no society, no person was untouched. And the world we inhabit today, in all its complexity, is a creation shaped directly by this immense tragedy. This is the story of how the war began, how it was fought, and how it reshaped the modern world. The road to war, the seeds of World War II were planted in the ashes of the first. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles punished Germany heavily. It lost territory, its military was dismantled, and its economy spiraled into chaos. The German people suffered through hunger, joblessness, and humiliation. In this climate of desperation, a charismatic yet deeply dangerous figure rose, Adolf Hitler. With fiery speeches and promises of restored greatness, he convinced millions that Germany's future required rejecting democracy, silencing dissent, and reclaiming lost lands through force. Germany wasn't alone in its pursuit of authoritarian power. In Italy, Benito Mussolini dreamed of a revived Roman Empire. In Japan, military leaders believed expansion was necessary for survival. The global depression only intensified nationalism and mistrust. The world hoped the League of Nations and early attempt at global peacekeeping would stop aggression. But without unity, without force, and without the cooperation of major powers, it proved powerless. With Europe fractured and the world distracted, Hitler acted. In 1936, he marched troops into the demilitarized Rhineland. No one stopped him. Seeing weakness, he grew bolder. He annexed Austria. He demanded territory in Czechoslovakia. Each time, the world hesitated, hoping appeasement would prevent another catastrophic war. But on September 1, 1939, the illusion shattered. Germany invaded Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. A world engulfed. The German invasion of Poland was swift and brutal, powered by a new method of warfare, blitzkrieg or lightning war, instead of slow, trench-based fighting like in World War I. This strategy used rapid tank assaults, overwhelming air power, and precise coordination. The Polish army never had a chance. Within weeks, Poland fell and the world watched as Germany turned west. In 1940, Denmark and Norway collapsed quickly. Then came Belgium, the Netherlands, and finally France. French defenses were bypassed. French armies outmaneuvered. In just 6 weeks, Paris fell. Europe was shocked. Britain now stood alone against the Axis. Across the world, Japan was expanding through East Asia, advancing deeper into China with staggering brutality. Italy sought its own victories in North Africa and the Mediterranean. The world was splitting into two vast camps, Axis and Alizand. The flames were spreading for the United States. The war still felt distant. But that would soon change in the most dramatic way possible. Operation Barbarossa and Pearl Harbor. On June 22, 1941, Germany unleashed the largest invasion in human history. Operation Barbarossa, the assault on the Soviet Union. Millions of troops crossed the border. Thousands of tanks advanced. It was a war of annihilation. Hitler intended not just to defeat the Soviet Union, but to destroy it entirely. Cities fell quickly, Soviet forces were encircled, millions of soldiers were captured or killed, but the Soviet Union refused to collapse. As the Germans pushed deeper, they encountered a vast, unforgiving land and resistance that refused to break. While Europe was consumed in flames, another explosion was coming in the Pacific. On December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft swarmed over Pearl Harbor. In less than 2 hours, ships burned, airfields were shattered, and thousands were dead. The United States, once divided on entering the war, now stood united with a single voice. America had entered the conflict, and the balance of global power would never be the same again. Turning the tide, the early years of the war belonged to the Axis. But as 1942 unfolded, the momentum began to shift. In the Pacific, the United States won a stunning victory at Midway, destroying 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, the heart of Japan's naval strength. It was a turning point that halted Japan's expansion and set the stage for a long, grinding, island-hopping campaign. In North Africa, British and Allied forces halted the Germans at El Alamein, turning back the famed Afrika Korps and weakening Axis influence on the continent. But the most decisive turning point came on the Eastern Front, in the ruined city of Stalingrad. Soviet soldiers fought block by block, room by room, refusing to yield. The winter closed in, supplies ran thin, and eventually the German Sixth Army was surrounded. In early 1943 it surrendered. It was a devastating blow, one from which the German military would never fully recover. Across every front, the Allies were advancing. Step by step, the war's direction was changing. The Allied advance. By 1944, the Allies were preparing for one of the most ambitious military operations of all time, the invasion of Western Europe. On June 6, 1944, the beaches of Normandy erupted with fire and steel as Allied forces stormed ashore in the largest amphibious invasion ever attempted. D-Day opened the gateway to Europe, and the liberation began. Meanwhile, the Soviets were advancing relentlessly from the east, driving German forces back toward their homeland. By early 1945, Germany was trapped in a vice. Its cities were bombed, its armies weakened, its leaders desperate. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. Victory in Europe was achieved. But the war was not over. In the Pacific, Japan still fought fiercely. The battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa revealed a terrifying truth. An invasion of Japan could cost millions of lives. American leaders faced an impossible choice and made a decision that would change the world forever. The atomic age begins in August 1945. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs, one on Hiroshima, one on Nagasaki. In seconds, entire cities were consumed. Tens of thousands died instantly. Many more suffered in the days, months, and years that followed. Japan had no choice, it surrendered. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, had finally ended, but the atomic bomb had opened the door to a new and terrifying era, one in which humanity held the power to destroy itself. The cost of war, the price of victory, was beyond comprehension. More than 70 million people were dead, entire cities were reduced to ash. Families were shattered, cultures disrupted, landscapes scarred. The world had never seen such destruction. But perhaps the most horrifying revelation came when Allied forces liberated the concentration camps. There, they confronted the full magnitude of Nazi genocide, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, Romani people, disabled individuals, political prisoners, and countless innocents. The Holocaust became a permanent reminder of humanity's capacity for evil and the urgent necessity of vigilance, justice, and human rights. The world rebuilt as countries emerged from the ruins. The world faced a monumental question: how do we prevent this from ever happening again? The answer reshaped global politics. The United Nations was created, bringing nations together in hopes of maintaining peace. The United States launched the Marshall Plan, helping Europe rebuild and stabilizing economies devastated by war. New global alliances formed. Old empires crumbled as nations across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East demanded independence. The United States and Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers, their ideological conflict setting the stage for the Cold War. Borders were redrawn. Colonial rule declined. Democracy strengthened, and technology accelerated by wartime innovation, ushered in a modern age of medicine, aviation, computing, and nuclear energy. The world that emerged from World War II was not merely different, it was reborn. The war's enduring legacy more than 80 years later, the impact of World War II is still felt everywhere. The architecture of international diplomacy from NATO to the United Nations grew from the war's lessons. The modern movements for human rights, justice, and equality gained momentum in response to wartime atrocities. Economies were rebuilt and interconnected, laying the foundation for globalization. Even the cultural memory of the war through films, books, memorials, and testimonies continues to shape how we understand courage, sacrifice, and the consequences of hatred. World War II remains a warning, a reminder that peace is fragile, and that the decisions of nations and individuals carry immense weight. Closing the Second World War was more than a conflict. It was a turning point in human history, a lesson paid for with blood and suffering, a story of destruction and rebirth. As we look at the world today, our alliances, our freedoms, our technologies, and even our fears, we can trace their origins back to those turbulent years. The world was broken, then rebuilt, and in that rebuilding the foundations of the modern age were laid. This is the legacy of World War II, a legacy that continues to shape us all.